Hey, what's going on, everyone? Joe Menza here, and here's a nice little, interesting little painting that I'm going to show you how I did. And if you've listened to me for any time period, you know I'm not a fan of masking fluid. So I've been fooling around with like tape and cutouts and things like that, which are fun in of themselves. But in this case here, I wanted to do one of these. I've seen, tons of these birch tree scenes. But they're fun to do, and in this case here I decided I'm going to mask these trees off with some masking tape. And I took off some of the tack by running the tape across my pant leg so that it wouldn't be as sticky. And I'm sticking the individual bigger branch pieces here. I just kind of made this up as I went along. But I mean, you've seen tons of these different birch tree scenes, but I wanted to do something kind of unique. So these pieces of tape here, I'm varying the size a little bit by using a couple extra pieces of tape, bending it a little bit. I'm showing you how tacky it is here. But these are going to be like the foreground pieces, and then I'll do some skinnier ones in the background, just by kind of folding the tape. It doesn't even really have to stick on there like super good, the way that I'm going to do it anyway, because you've seen me use spray bottles before. But you can actually cut out pieces of masking paper and double side tape, stick it in a couple spots. You don't necessarily have to use masking tape, but either way you can do it, and you don't have to use any masking fluid. So, that masking fluid stuff, it's like $15, $20 a bottle US. And you have to wait for it to dry, and you have to peel it off. And I've never had any real success with that stuff. So I'm always looking for like little alternatives. There's a huge value in leaving white on the paper, because it really can have a dramatic effect, which I realize. But then at the same time, I'm kind of lazy when it comes to that. I mean, it requires a lot of planning and knowing exactly what you're going to paint. And a lot of times I paint by the seat of my pants. But this one here, I kind of had an idea in mind what I wanted to do. And truth be told, I did one before this one, and it looked interesting. But the way I did it was I ended up, I sprayed a little too much paint after I removed the tape, and my trees were not light enough. So this is actually my second go at this. So if you have to try this a couple times, don't feel bad. Just try it. Try it as many times as you want. Move the trees around. You could have a whole birch tree series. So as you can see, I'm kind of randomizing and putting these skinny pieces of tape on here. And then once I'm done, I'm going to take my little spray bottles, and you can use a brush. You don't have to use a spray bottle. But I just felt it was easier and not to have to disturb the tape. I'll show you both ways, actually. I'll show you kind of both ways. But once this tape is stuck on here, this is 11 by 14 Fabriano Studio 100 and, 120 pound. It's a little thicker. I like the paper being a little thicker for the most part. And I like Fabriano. It gives you a little chance to work. It's 25% cotton. And I'm painting flat, by the way. This is my flat board that I can tilt as needed, not my easel. I made this one. You can watch my DIY video where I just made a hole in a board, and I attached the plastic piece from the tripod so that I could take it off and on a regular existing camera tripod. So another little money-saving thing. But I'm constantly looking for new ways to do things so that my work doesn't necessarily look like anyone else's. So there's several ways you can go about doing this. In this case here, I've sprayed it. You can take a brush and you can bash it in. You can flick it on. You can paint it. You could do however you want to for the background. So just to make it easy here, I'm spraying. I'm using my spray bottles. I've got some yellow ochre. I've got a green mix that I've done. And I've got a blue, and I'm just kind of randomly spraying this in here. And these colors will obviously dry flat. I've got a green. I think it's a little too dark though, actually. Okay, so I've let that dry there in between little breaks. And this is what I was saying you could do alternatively. You don't have to do the background, but if you want a background color, you could paint it on, spray it on, whatever. I'm just dabbing in some different colors on my palette. You can see here to the right. And I'm just dabbing in what would be some, leaves, trees, foliage, what have you. In between each one of these pieces of tape, and you don't have to worry about the tree trunks themselves because we've taped over them, and that's the main thing. So I'm going into some cad yellow hue. Most of my colors here are Cotman colors that I use. I like using the cad yellow hue as opposed to cadmium yellow because it's got some toxic properties to it. And none of the Cotman colors, they're student grade, but they don't have the toxicity or anything to them, so you can feel pretty safe using them. They're basically like dyes to simulate the same colors. So you can see me here, I'm mixing probably a little more than normal, trying to get some different greens and things. Go a little bit darker. Just to vary up that leafy background there. So you can do that with a dry hake. Take a hake brush, dry off most of the moisture on it on a towel, and then rough up the brush edge so that the bristles are pointing out more spread out, and then dip those into some neat paint, and then just kind of dab that on, and let the individual brush hair tips make your leaves. Okay, so now that I have a bunch of leaves kind of mashed in there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play around with my spray bottles a little bit more. You can, work with brushes or what have you. I just, whatever gives you the most fun. I'm going to take I have a yellow ochre here, and I have an orange, and I can use that to warm things up. And when you do the spray bottles, you can get some really unique, it adds on, if you're normally using water bottles to spray and create some interesting opportunities, let's say, and interesting effects, putting a color into that spray is just it's another way to get that to happen, but with colors. And you can spray colors on top of other colors. And the interesting thing about that is if you're concerned about being a mud maker, in other words, you take too many colors, you mix them together, and you end up with this just bad color. It just looks gray or muddy. When you do it with the spray bottles and you dry, you can keep layering. You can layer on top of layer. And you can come up with some interesting effects without necessarily being a mud maker. And you can create some really interesting foliage and some different ground effects. So I'm going to take and I'm going to spray a little bit more of my orange. This is what I like to do. I take the spray bottles, and if I feel like something needs to be warmed up, I don't have to touch it with my brush. I can actually warm it up by spraying this this color on there, which is creates it just gives it a little zap of warmth and a little zap of color where you need it. without doing too much disturbance, like I say, with the brush. And then if you feel things are heavy here or they need to be broken up there, you can come in with your regular spray bottle. You can also come in with your towel. And don't worry, everything I do is not going to be spray bottle based. This is just sort of lately. As I said, we're all on this journey together. So anything that I come up with that I'm currently using, we're gonna evolve into different areas. We're gonna go down different roads and try different things. That was one of the reasons why I did. This is a little bit different of a painting. There are a lot of different tastes and a lot of different personalities out there, and people will want to know how to paint different things and do different fun things and things they might want to hang on their wall around their house or give as a gift or something like that. And something like this wouldn't be a bad idea. Who doesn't really like trees or, different little colors, things like that. And this is one of those types of things that can, you can gift, and it has a very unique look to it. And don't be afraid. Use any colors that you want. Pull up pictures of different birch trees and different scenes. Create a different layout of the trunks that you want to, and do different leaf colors. You can go more green, more yellow, more fall colors, whatever it is that you like, whatever it is the decor you're trying to match up with. So that's the nice thing about doing this. So this one here is definitely a little more formula based, because we are doing the masking, and then there's a little bit more process to this. Some might even say it's a little more like crafting, but whatever gets you there, is what I say. Okay, so now that this has had a little chance to dull out a little bit and dry, I'm coming back in with more of that cad yellow hue, and I'm just dabbing in more highlighted leaves on top. Neat paint, scraggly hake brush. We're just enhancing. Now again, you can make this as simple as you want. You could have come in and just taken the hake brush and kind of bashed in some leaves and called it a day. You could probably do it in 5 or 10 minutes period of time, as opposed to something like this where we're kind of trying some different techniques, different things. But you can bash in some different colors, just boom, 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 and peel back your tape, and then jump to that point. What you can do anytime in this video, you can jump to the tape peeling. But as you can see, we've got a nice foliage. It's worth the effort in the end to get all these textures. And that's one of the things that I've been, working on is, just trying to get a lot of textures. And there's so many little different colors and little backgroundy things going on. So, you spray a little water or a little bit of alcohol or, whatever little solutions that you have, whatever can get you some texture. Okay, and now the moment we've been waiting for, we're going to peel this tape off carefully. And we're going to leave behind our tree trunks. And you can see we have some very, very solid white bars that will ultimately be our trunk. Now, that's not the end of it. We're going to have to do a little bit more work to make this look, a little more realistic. So just carefully peel off the tape. Make sure it's dry when you do this. If your tape is more tacky or more adhesive on it, just, carefully roll it. You don't want to peel off any backing of the actual paper. So just take your time with it. At this point, everything's dry anyway. So there we have our tree pattern now. At this point, you could theoretically just, dab on those little gray and black dots that you see on birch trees, but in order to make this work the best, we're going to have to do a little bit of added work. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a round brush. I don't use these too often, but we're going to take a round brush with just a little bit of water on it. And what I need to do is make a little bit of a shadow to one side, but the other purpose for this is to soften the edges where the tape was, so that it looks more natural. It doesn't look masked off. So I'm going to take a little bit of some darker grayish colors, a little blue, a little bit of Payne's gray, and I'm going to disturb probably a little bit of the edge with the green in there. That's okay. But we're softening the edges where the tape was, and we're creating a little bit of dimension on the tree trunks. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm just laying a little bit of water and I'm softening that hard edge. And I'm only softening the right side where the shadow is going to be. I'll come back to the other side shortly because I don't want to create too much of a shadow there. So getting some gray. But we definitely have to preserve these whites that we work, to save with our tape. And we want that to be sort of the lightest thing on the paper. So I'm still working on getting that shading right we'll do the right side will be our shadow side. A little bit of blue mixed in there. We don't want it to look black. We don't want to use straight Payne's gray. It'll look funny that way. I mean, it'll look like a dead spot. So just carefully mixing up a little bit of grays here. Grays leaning to the blue. So don't rush this process, This here is, we're more in our more careful, detailed phase here. Because this is the star. The trees are the sort of the star. The rest was just background window dressing. So I'm just giving that a little spray. I just want to keep that wet. Being careful. Don't overspray it or you'll start to have things run in there. So I'm just going to take my Hake brush now and I'm going to run it down along that edge. There's plenty of water on there just to get this nailed down a little bit better. Again, I'm pulling a little bit of the yellow and the background things off of the side there, but that's okay. And a little bit of that isn't going to hurt. It's going to make our tree trunks look a little more rounded, which is fine. We want our light coming from the left. Now, if you were going to do something like a burst of light in the center, and maybe we'll do this on a future painting if you like this one, if you had like a burst of light, then you could have the light on the left and right side of the trunk, closest to where the burst of light is. So I'm just going to work on this little bottom foliage section, let that dry for a little bit on top. Okay, so now for that next moment we've been waiting for, and that's to put these little knots in the trees. And I'm taking some darker colors, a little bit of gray. I'm going to use this round brush and kind of flatten it out a little bit. Some of these like things, if you look at birch trees, they almost look like eyes or something. It's hard to explain, but definitely has like a zebra sort of effect to it when you look at a bunch of them from a distance. Kind of like zebra trees. even though they're not stripes, but they kind of vary. They vary from these triangular looking things. Look up some pictures of birch trees, you'll see. And then you'll have an idea when you do yours, how you're going to dab those in. And I'm just being very random about it. Having them in the middle, along the side, you know, just going along. Just as I am here. Okay, so now that that's done, I'm just touching up the base of the trees. And now I've moved this painting to my easel with some good light on it and with a mat, so I can kind of get an idea of where I'm at with this whole thing. So I've gone from the flat table to my easel, and I'm just touching up some minor things. One of the things I've done in the last couple of videos is I have a new camera, so I've been using that, and I'm still learning how to get the best image I possibly can out of it. And I had a little problem because it's HDR, which some of the newer TVs have. And I don't know, I think YouTube has a problem with that. When I uploaded it, I even watched it back on my TV, the last video. It looked all washed out. It looked terrible. So I've changed that setting so there's no HDR. I want this to be as high quality as possible. So a little bit of growing pains. I thank you for your patience. And I hope this looks good to you. When I play it back, it doesn't look good as in person. So I got to figure out better ways to like capture what I'm doing. But I notice with these cameras, when you use mats and white borders and things like that, and all these different colors, you need like specialized equipment for videoing art. And I could see now when Bob Ross was painting, and he used to say things about he had to use brighter colors so it would show up on TV and things like that. Well, then obviously, you had people watching on tube TVs, and the quality was like maybe, it was videotape quality really. So now we have high definition, so we have people watching on better and better screens. So there's still little technological challenges that I'm constantly, looking around, watching back, and I need a faster way to be able to record these and upload them so it doesn't take time away from painting. And a lot of these I end up, because I'm so focused on what I'm doing, I come back and I narrate them, like this one. I didn't want to take my focus off because, as I said, this was the second one that I had done. But what I'm doing is I'm just anchoring these, just coming in with some little yellow and some, this is sort of my final phase when I do a painting, where I, just complete little things that I sit back and I look that I can improve upon. So just like I say, little minor things. Okay, so there we have it. That's the finished piece. Let's go ahead and put a mat on it and see what it looks like. Hopefully we can capture it, and you can get an idea what it looks like. I use a black mat for this. Let's zoom in as close as we can. You can see all the little textural things in there and what I was going for with my spraying and dabbing and all that kind of stuff, to see that it was hopefully well worth it. Just kind of scanning around and let you see the little details. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope it was fun. I hope you had a good time. And if you have any questions, just let me know below. We'll do one more zoom in. You can see those little oranges and the little dots and the shadows on the trees. And you can see how we soften those edges so the trees really stand out and they don't look like they were taped or masked. So that's it. Thanks again for watching, everybody. And as always, thanks for your support. I really appreciate it. Have a great week.